Hi, I'm Dr. Cynthia Elise Smith, and the doctor is in. Hey, as I said, I'm Dr. Cynthia Elise Smith, and for any people who may come in on this video live, hello, and anyone who watches this video after the fact, hello. Um, just as a reminder, I do a little housekeeping first. I do a little bit of explanation for what it is I do, and I give some definitions of some of the facts upon which I base the education that I provide. I am an anti-racism, anti-white supremacism educator and essayist, specializing in essays and presentations with alternative views on race, racist color, racist character, racism, and white supremacy. I offer deeper, more critical perspectives on these subjects, including the potential implications of racialized wording in the U.S. language lexicon that are not ordinarily considered. That means I will discuss particular words as they within the context of race and racism that people may not ordinarily even consider have a place in race. Now, I'm not here to change anybody's mind. I always say that. I'm not here to change your mind, but I'm here to make you think critically about the subject matter that I'm about to present to you. And as you critically think, perhaps you will begin to change your own mind. Now, I need for you to understand that this presentation is not, and I repeat, especially with regard to this particular presentation, it is not designed to make you comfortable. It's designed to make you think. Okay. Now, there are some things that I want to discuss with you before we begin. I always go through this discussion of the things that are important to understand. And there are 3 critical thinking tools that are very important for you to understand and use when watching and listening to any presentation that I give. And they're important because otherwise, if you don't understand the language of race and racism and white supremacy, you can't communicate properly. Just like if you go to a foreign land, you wouldn't be able to communicate properly unless you knew the language. Well, racism, and white supremacy has its own language as well. Sometimes it's hidden in euphemisms and dog whistles. So this is a way for you to learn how to navigate through the system of language, of race and racism, and white supremacy. The first is comprehension. And comprehension is very important because it is the essence of understanding what you're saying, being told, writing or reading, or the ability of one's mind to form and craft imagery and concepts from the words. I'm going to have to cut this thing off because this is really loud. Hold on a second. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Now, comprehension, that is understanding. Do you understand? Do you comprehend what's being said to you? The ability of your mind, okay, to form and craft the imagery and concepts that come from the words that are said to you or that are read to you. Okay. The next is context. Now, context is very important because, and second only to comprehension, it is the ability to understand the circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea, and in terms through which it can be fully understood and assessed. Think about that. The context is, how is this placed? How is this being framed? But this is why it's very important, because I frame everything within the context of race, racist color, racist character, racism, and white supremacy. So you have to understand the context of within what I am discussing, how I have framed it. Okay, and last is connotation. Now, here's why connotation is important. It's because it's the ability of words to summon emotion or an idea or feeling that a word invokes in addition to its literal expression, how it or its primary meaning. Like, you may know what a word, how a word is defined, but how does the word make you feel? Connotation is important because it is the feeling of the words. It's the expressive part. It is that part of the words, sentences, and paragraphs from thought that create the drama and cause you to react in whatever way the feeling makes you react, such as happiness, sadness. Right now there is an individual whose words, I won't mention the name, but this particular individual invokes a lot of anger among the YouTube verse uh, by most of the things that this person says. I think that people who follow the same content creators that I follow know exactly who I'm talking about, but I won't mention that person's name. But anyway, I digress. So, for purposes of this presentation, these are the definitions that I'll be using for race. Race is any one of the groups of humans that are often divided into based on physical traits regarded as common among people of shared ancestry. Race as color is color used to distinguish a race of people. White supremacists use race as color to distinguish Black people from themselves. Race as character. That's character used to distinguish a race of people. Now, white people use character to distinguish Black people, by the content of their character as defined by them, and other nationalities based on what they have determined are their characteristics. And what comes to mind is how Trump called Mexicans rapists and bad people and things like that. He attacked their character. Okay. Next is racism, and this is so important. This one is extremely, extremely important. And it is because there are so many broad definitions that do not adequately state what racism actually is. Racism is the systematic subjugation within established institutions in the U.S. through structurally designed discrimination and denial of opportunity, equity, equality, and justice built into every institution in the country. In this country, I'm talking about the United States. I'm sure there are forms of inequity, inopportunity, inequality, and injustice all over the world based on the color of a person's skin, but I'm talking about in the United States. And it was created to control the formerly enslaved and their descendants in perpetuity after the enslavement ended. And you're going to find today, based on my discussion today, what white supremacism and racism actually did to people who share their skin color. Now, next, white supremacism. White supremacism is the ideology using the color white and whiteness as a value and merit metric or measurement, where superiority and goodness align with the color white and the color black and blackness are aligned as bad or inferior, each having been assigned generations ago to skin pigmentation. Next is whiteness. Now, whiteness is the theory, it's a theory that skin pigment or the assignment of the color white to imply skin color grants the individual with certain natural rights and privileges. The indoctrinated perception is of complete sovereignty over and above anything else on the planet Earth. Last is value. Value is very important because value is what it is all about. Value is what white supremacism is all about. Okay, value is the desirability of a thing, often in respect of some property, as usefulness or exchangeability, worth, merit, or importance. Part of the whole concept of superiority is based on value, whether it is merit or race. Now, today's presentation is an essay that I wrote on September 1st, and it is called Selective Collectivism, an open letter to white supremacist racists. Now, the definition of collectivism is the practice or principle of giving a group priority over each individual in the group. Now, normally, collectivism would be considered used for determining cultures and economics, and communism would be considered collectivism. But I'm using this in its most broad term, in terms of just collections of people, and the practice or principle of giving a group. And remember, the context I'm using here is race. racism and white supremacism. That is the context, not communism, not capitalism, not anything like that. Okay? I am talking about this within the context of white supremacism and racism. Okay? Now, and that's why it's called selective collectivism. It is certain that in 2023, there will be enough Black and white people who can agree that the entire concept of white supremacy was, at the very least, a poor practical joke played on poor and indentured people of generations past, sharing skin pigment with the wealthy gentry class to ensure they would never band together and uprise with enslaved Black people as they had done during the Bacon Rebellion. Now, research the Bacon Rebellion, okay, and make sure you don't fall upon the bleached version of the Bacon Rebellion. Make sure you look for uh, the Bacon Rebellion as it truly existed, where poor white people and the enslaved and indentured people got together and uprose in an uprising, and they rebelled against the wealthy gentry. And because the wealthy gentry was so frightened at the prospect of the enslaved banding together with the indentured servants, who were predominantly white, or shared their skin color, what they did was change the status of the enslaved. Uh, well, let me just backtrack just a little bit. Uh, in their class structure, the enslaved were part of the lower class, with the indentured servants and the poor whites and the poor people. And what they did was they elevated the status of the indentured and poor people who shared their skin color, and lowered the status of the enslaved to basically to chattel, and like animals, and the rest is history. Okay, so research that and find out about the Bacon Rebellion and what they did after. Okay. When viewed through the lens of critical thought, it is clear that the free labor produced by the enslaved meant there were no jobs available for able bodied, poor, white people. By assigning, now, I often talk about this, I often talk about the assignment of the color Black and white, because that's what happened. Okay, those colors already had definitions of them, of the of themselves. Anytime you might wonder, why did they call them, why were they not pink, or why were we not brown? uh that's because there were definitions of value associated with those two words already through religion and art. Okay, and I'll be talking about that part. So it is clear that the free labor produced by the enslaved meant there were no jobs available for able-bodied poor white people. By assigning the color white to their bodies, openly encouraging animosity, creating law from prosecution for persecuting and brutalizing enslaved people with whom they assigned the color Black, and providing these newly white people with jobs to police the enslaved, the wealthy white gentry created an entire culture of revisionist antebellum history and what could rightly be considered. I want you to hear this. They created an entire culture of revisionist antebellum history, the history of the South during enslavement, as it was one of it was greatest times of opportunity for them. And the women walked around in their beautiful clothing, and you know um and the men were gallant, the women were pure, you know and whatnot, and 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 what could rightly be considered a 400-year, even more, approximately 400-year gestational or malignant narcissism among white people that has managed to continue to this present day, no thanks to the roots of systemic racism by names such as the Black Codes and later Jim Crow since 1865, when the enslavement ended. The question of why so many white people still adhere to this obvious caricature of themselves in the face of a myriad of evidence to the contrary is due to two things: systemic racism, which perpetuates the notion of superiority by consistent denial and discrimination of rights and privileges to those who they have defined as minority and underserved, two euphemisms that are used to describe Black people in particular. When you hear minority, the first thing that comes to mind is what? Do you think, who do you think of when you hear the word minority? First thing that pops into your mind. First thing that pops into your mind when you hear the word minority. Okay. If I have any people in the chat today who are light bulbs, I'd like you to cut on the light. Hit those light bulbs. If I have any of my illuminators in the chat today, I'd like to see the light bulbs. Anyway, so let me start this over one more time. Systemic racism, which perpetuates the notion of superiority by consistent denial and discrimination of rights and privileges to those they have defined as minority and underserved, and how they, now this is the second one, and how they digest their history of merit and achievement. So the first one is racism, and the second one is how they digest their history of achievement and merit. Okay. So that the question is, of why so many adhere to the obvious caricature. Why do they still hang on to these notions? Okay. One is racism, because there's a foot on the scale, and I'll talk about all of that. However, both of these things smack them hard in the face, yet they fail to feel the sting or notice the bruise, since the former places a foot on the scale of equality, equity, opportunity, and justice to ensure there is nothing fair about the life experiences of these two races, us and them. Thereby creating that which they have defined as minority and underserved. I mean, the reason why they define us as minority and underserved, and a few other choice epithets and dog whistles and euphemisms, is because they created a system that relegates us collectively to those situations and names and whatnot. Now, this makes one wonder what those at the top, the descendants of the wealthy gentry class of old, really thought. Now, I need for you to really think about this, okay? In 2023, 2023 mindsets, okay? This has to make one wonder what those at the top, the descendants of the wealthy gentry class of old, really thought of those they declared were the same as themselves by virtue of nothing but skin color. I wonder what they thought about those people. And it makes you wonder what the descendants think about people like that today, who could declare themselves the same as by virtue of nothing more than skin color. So I said, frankly, people who could believe that the simple assignment, come on now, that the simple assignment of a color to the pigment of their skin made them superior based on the definition applied to those colors by religion and art must have been so easily suggestible. These people must have been so easily suggestible back then, and they must be so easily suggestible today. So certainly back then they must have been so easily suggestible that that the wealthy gentry knew. They had to know. If they could get them to believe this, they knew that they would have to design a mechanism to sustain that belief. They knew they had to design something else, put something in place to sustain that belief, because these poor and indigent people with shared skin color would have debunked the notion of their superiority all by themselves. I mean, come on. If you're dumb enough to believe that your skin pigment means you are superior to someone else, they said, "Oh, we're not going to be able to sustain this. We're not going to be able to just sustain this on just like that. We're going to have to create something to ensure that the belief is substantiated and maintained in perpetuity." The latter, or how they digest their history of merit and achievement, is fascinating. When asked about the history of the enslavement and the collective responsibility and accountability for that history, they will immediately, and I have found this to be the case 100% of the time, they will immediately put on the cloak of individuality and declare they had absolutely nothing to do with it. They're not racist. They had nothing to do with the enslavement. They're people. They never, I never enslaved anyone. Why should I have to deal with ramifications of the enslavement when I never had any slaves? However, when arguing over the mediocrity of the average white person in America and elsewhere, and the existence of the former, or racism, they will immediately point to the merit and achievement of white people who discovered this, created that, conquered land, sea, and space. When the vast majority of average white people have not gone to the moon, discovered cures for illnesses, or created the stoplight. It would seem the collectivity of whiteness only works when touting achievements, not atrocities. So, what must be understood, and this is important, what must be understood is that average white people are not the same as those who control them. This bears repeating. Average white people are not the same as those who control them. Yes, they are controlled too. This is important not only for white people to understand, but for Black people to understand as well. And I'm going to tell you why. It is important for Black people in particular to understand that the power dynamic, see, the power dynamic, my hair keeps anyway, the power dynamic shifts drastically when unbleached history reveals that the entire ideology of white supremacism was contrived by wealthy owners to control their poor white populations. We need to stop giving average white people power. People, Black people. And it is the only reason average white people perceive themselves as collectively powerful today. I want to repeat that entire little piece for you. Average white people are not the same as those who control them. This is important not only for white people to understand, but for Black people to understand as well. It is important for Black people in particular to understand that the power dynamic shifts drastically when unbleached history reveals that the entire ideology of white supremacism was contrived by wealthy landowners to control their poor white population. And it is the only reason average white people perceive themselves as collectively powerful today. Whiteness is only achievable because those in power practice selective collectivism. That's where it pops up. Okay, now do you understand what that collectivism within the context of this discussion means? Selective collectivism. Whiteness is only achievable because those in power practice selective collectivism on the people that they control, white people that they control. Okay, it's okay for you to talk in terms of collectivity, talk in terms of the group. The group takes priority when we're talking about all of the wonderful achievements we have made. That's the only time that you guys can be part of us. You got that? You get it? Are you understanding that? Listen, you average white people. I'm white power right now. I'm the very the people that empower, and I'm saying to you white people, the only time you can say we are part of the collective, the only time that the group takes priority is when you talk about our achievements. Now we know you guys haven't done a god dang it thing. We know that, but you can hang on to our coattail on that one. But that's it. So they practice the selective collectivism the same way today as they did generations ago. And average white people rely on this collective to feel what? What? Superior. Because if they had to rely on themselves, I mean, come on. If they had to rely on their individuality, it just would not hold. You get it? Therefore, in order to help dismantle the notion of white superiority, selective collectivism among white people must be debunked. For this reason, an open letter to these average white people is necessary and appropriate. And here's the open letter. Listen, you racist, white supremacist trumpettes and Maganites. This is for all you selective collectivists who only use individuality to account for the reality of your own struggle with those who control you and the collectivity for achievements you never earned on your own. We want nothing from you, poor white, powerless, ridiculous people. Apparently, the almost carnal seduction of shared skin color is all they need to lure your narrow minds into blindly allowing them to cast you into sections of value, classes like the middle class, the upper middle class, class, based on the amounts of money they decide to pay you, based on the value, remember that word in our definitions, based on the value they have placed on your body working for them. As long as they know you are tied to that trivial camaraderie, they will continue to use that against you to keep themselves in power. Racism and white supremacy doesn't just affect us, it affects them too. They just don't see it. Smacks them in the face all the time. And guess what? They don't feel the sting and they don't see the bruises. We don't want your suburbs, but it is apparent now that you want the cities you left us inside of back in the 70s, you are coming back to in droves to gentrify us completely out of them. We don't want your jobs. We want our own jobs. We want our own ability to create our own jobs. We don't want your communities. We want our own communities. You say we are separatists when we declare we want our own. And yet you scoff at our inability to do so, calling us lazy, even as though who control us all ensure we won't try. What did they do every opportunity they did back before the 1964 Civil Rights Act was signed, and they assimilated and integrated us into their society and culture? They burnt them down, whole communities, killed, lynched people every time. Furthermore, if America is supposed to be a meritocracy with achievement based on one's ability, then why do you lose your minds over the prospect of real, honest, equal, and equitable competition with Black people in all areas of human activity? I'll tell you. It is because you've been living so long within the system of racism, which guaranteed you would have no genuine competition with Black descendants of the enslavement. So you never bothered to go beyond the mediocrity of competition among yourselves. You don't even know the meaning of veridical struggle. Now, faced with generations of Black achievement in spite of enormous barriers of the system of racism, coupled with the thought of not being considered superior anymore, there is literally no wonder why your leaders are spewing fire and brimstone. Your leaders know all you gullible people have left is the fear of retribution from us. Another myth they have hung over your heads for generations to keep you afraid of us. Keep you afraid of us. But you have nothing. You have nothing we want. We don't envy you. We mostly pity you. We don't preoccupy ourselves with you. You are the ones so generationally preoccupied with us that by now you are literally losing your minds. What are they doing? They're trying to stop us from voting all over again. They want to change history. They want to ban books that are written by people like us. Once and for all, you have been duped by your own leaders. You are still being conditioned and deluded. Just like they duped your ancestors into fighting a war to protect their wealth derived from enslaving humans during the Civil War, they're at it again. That's why they do not want you woke, and why it is so easy at this point to make you think being awake and aware is wrong. I mean, come on. They have them people so duped. These people of shared skin color, they have them so duped that they think being awake and aware of what is happening to themselves. See, they know. These people know, they understand because they created the entire structure. They understand that if they so much as uh, allow them to understand racism, they will begin to understand their own class subjugation. The day you see them as something other than a shared skin color collective of feigned superiority is the day the structures fall down. At this time, however, you are nothing more than the willing, sycophantic participants in the end of your own democracy because they want you afraid of the Black boogeyman. But it's time to face the facts. You had better stop thinking your shared collectivism of whiteness will protect you, because as quietly as they have kept it, the real boogeyman is actually white. And one day, they will no longer need to placate you with the benefit of shared skin color. And that concludes the essay today. I hope that you understood what was being said. And if you understood what I was getting at with this essay, see, sometimes when I get into the effects that white supremacy have on white people, because black people aren't the only people who subscribe to me, or on my other platforms, and they need to know too. They need to know. We ain't the only ones. We understand, most of us should understand by now, especially our light bulbs should understand by now what we're dealing with in terms of behavior is white supremacism, and in terms of a strategic, structural, institutionalized system to make sure that they keep a foot on the scale that is racism. Okay? That's the tool. That's what they use to keep it up, because they knew anybody who was suggestible enough back then to believe that a simple thing such as the color of your skin made you a superior being, they knew that they would not be able to maintain that. They'd never be able to maintain that without something put into place. So they had to ensure that we would not be able to compete with them. Because what happens when we do in those areas where we can, even on a limited basis, where they have the most difficulty, which is sports and entertainment, things like that. In those areas, I mean, God knows they tried. God knows they tried to keep us from playing the baseball and the basketball and the football and the gymnastics and the swimming and everything else, and the tennis, and the golf. So when we break through, what do? We become the greatest of all time. And the boxing, you see what I mean? Every time when we compete, we surpass because we good. And I'm saying that collectively. Why? Because they gave that to us. We didn't get individuality, which is why everything that happens, it's like, oh my God, what does this do to the race? Oh, we as a people. Oh, look what they did. That makes us look bad. What? Now I could say, oh, that doesn't make me look bad because that person acted like an ass. But it wouldn't hold because we are a collective. We are united in that way, for good or for bad. They did that. And that's fine. I'm fine with it. I don't mind being a collective. But them, they said, nope, the only way you could be a collective is when you're touting our achievements. When you talk about how we did this and we did that, you can share in that. But if you planning on trying to be anything other than what we say you are, whenever yeah. Well, now I'm going to look in the chat because it looked like it was moving around. And I got some hand claps and things like that. And I'd like to just kind of shout you out a little bit. I see Aries 1. I see transcripts. Hey, I see Rosetta Brooks. And I see Triggered. That's my girl. Shout out to Triggered. And let me see your transcripts. Definitely go check out their definitely go check out their channels. They they're good. They keep me posted on things and people who shall remain nameless. Yep. Oh, that's so nice. Yep. And OL Griffin, hello, OL Griffin. Mwah. Yeah, I know. And then the notifications don't work. And I'm not in anybody's. I'm not in an algo. I'm not viewers. I have to have more viewers and more time and more likes, more no, more views and more likes in order for the algorithm to write me in order for that to write me in to viewer um, stats so that I'll be seen more often in people's feeds. So, oh, by the way, if you haven't, please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already to the channel. If you find that what I've said is of some benefit to you, you can also feel free to cash at me. You don't have to, but if you want to, that would be nice as well. And let's see. So yeah, is there anybody who would be interested or would like to come up and discuss this topic? If not, that's fine. If do you have any questions about what was written, said, or anything? If you have any questions about what was said or written, just let me know. And because I do have my computer, I have my main computer. I got a new monitor, and it's 23 or so inches, and it's really nice touchscreen monitor. Because I'm getting old, I can't see. So, God, in 3 months, I am going to be 70 years old. Oh my God. It makes me shiver just to think about it. I mean, the jowls are coming down. The jowl, I'm going like this, trying to pull them back up, and they keep going. Shoom. Something. Don't get old, people. Don't get old. Hopefully, they'll come out. They'll come up with a cure for aging. I won't see it in my lifetime. That's for sure. Anyway, oh, thank you, Rosetta. Thank you. That's because StreamYard has an extra little thing in the setup that says something like, enhance your look. I'm sure, and the lighting. Because if I don't have any makeup on, I am beat up. I got like tons of that light stuff that the highlighter you put up under here. Oh, thank you, Rosetta. Thank you, honey. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you, dear. Well, listen, if nobody wants to come up and chat, uh, what I will do. Oh, you know what? Would you like to? Would anybody like to? Cause I'll put the. Let me put the. Hold on. Let me put it in the chat. Hold on a sec. Uh, Let me put it in the chat. Oh no, I don't want to do it that way. I'll do it this way. Okay. Oh no, I can't do it that way. Oh, Cindy, for God's sakes. Okay, hold on. Let me do the invite and then put it in the chat. Wait a minute. Oh, paste. No. Jesus. Hold on. I'm like messing up because I don't have. Oh, wait. I forgot. I got my touchscreen keyboard. Hold on 1 second. Let me get rid of this. Okay. See if I got rid of it. Yeah, I did, I think. Okay, now let me do invite. Okay, copy. Now it'll work. Now it shall work. Paste it in. That says paste. Okay, good. Yeah. I'm putting in the StreamYard thingy. I'll do that first. And then I'll ask, would anybody like to come up and talk about the subject? If not, um, that's quite all right. Oh, guess what I learned how that's not what I wanted to do. Guess what I learned how to do? I learned how to pin something in the chat. I learned it today. So I have it pinned in the chat, I think, if you'd like to come up and discuss. If not, I'm going to say goodnight because I'm getting ready to eat and tie this head up. Today was hair day. It did have curls, but they all came out. Not curly curls, but curls in the bottom, and they came out. But yep. Is it OL Griffin? Oh, okay. Happy belated birthday. You turned 70? Good. Okay. I'll look forward to mine in 3 months. Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Well, listen, since nobody wants to come up, I'm going to oh, don't forget hit that like button on the way out. People who watch this on the replay, do hit the like button and subscribe. I don't come up here that often because I have to be inspired to write. And sometimes things just hit me, sometimes they don't. But the open letter was actually, I wrote that in 2020 on Facebook. And somebody had commented, well, somebody brought it back from from the memory. In Facebook you have like these memories, and somebody must have been going through some of my things and found it in the memory and brought it up again and put a comment in there that says this should have been an essay. I said, ooh, what happened? The light bulb went on. Okay, the light bulb went on. Boop. And I thought to myself, hey, why not write an essay around it? And I did. So that's how I get um, some of my inspiration. So I'm getting ready to let me see what time it is because I think that it is about time. Yep, it's 8:58. I usually stay on about an hour, a little more than an hour. And since nobody is discussing or wants to discuss this on a panel, I'm going to say goodbye. Oh, my voice is. Everybody, have a great evening. Have a great Labor Day weekend. Be safe. Be happy. And I'll see you again soon. Okay? Bye bye now.